Here's, and I'm an L&D manager in All Stars IT. So again, it's my pleasure to see you all. So just a few words about All Stars IT. It's a global outstaffing offshore company. We provide services all regarding information technologies and high tech. As a client or potential client, you may see our thank you. You may see all our services on our website, allstarsit.com. And if you are searching for a job or new career opportunities, we have plenty of IT and high-tech related vacancies. So feel free to visit us online. And if you are interested in more events like that, if you are trying to improve your soft skills or hard skills, just follow us on social media. We are on each social media platform: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Telegram, basically everywhere. So just follow us and watch for new opportunities to learn something new. And today we are talking about artificial intelligence. It's related to OpenAI. It's actually quite interesting for myself. I'm anticipating to learn more because I've been following OpenAI. As you may remember, it's a company that invented or rather developed GPT technology, ChatGPT, DALL-E, as I may remember. Those are partners of Microsoft, and we may use those services in Azure, as I may understand. And Alexander will tell us more and show how to do this, actually. And today's speaker is Alexander Krakovetsky. He's a friend of mine. He's also CEO of DevRain, CTO for Donor UA. He is also Microsoft's regional director, Microsoft's most valuable professional for quite a lot of years, as I may remember, especially for AI platform. And the latest title of him, as I may remember, he's now in Forbes Technology Council. And he's also PhD, and he's been in IT sphere, I think, for more than 15, probably around 20 years. So, and most of this time he's been working on artificial intelligence related stuff. So probably this one of the major specialists in this area in Ukraine for sure, and probably in Europe. That's it. Alexander, I'm really pleased to see you today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please type them into your chat. Keep yourself muted till the end of the session where we have a possibility to talk. We'll have a small Q&A session. But if you have some questions or remarks related to the conversation related to the topic, just type them into the chat. I'll be able to sound them, or Alexander will check them from time to time, and will answer them for sure. So Alexander, thanks a lot for joining us today. I'm giving you this pleasure to talk with us and teach us something new. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Again, thank you so much for this kind introduction. I'm very pleased to talk today at All Stars IT. It's not my first time, and I'm very glad that you invited me once again. Yes, today we will talk about Azure OpenAI Service, but before we will talk about this service, we will talk a little bit about generative AI, about ChatGPT, what is it, what's the models, what's the technology behind that, And later on, we will talk about Azure OpenAI Service, how you can use the corporate version of OpenAI. Organizational stuff. So if you have any questions that are contextual, feel free to add them to the meeting chat. So I will be able to read them and respond. Or if they will be covered by the upcoming slides, so I will tell it. Also, at the end, we will have the Q&A session, so feel free to prepare your questions to the end. Okay, let's start from the simple question. So why we are talking about this right now? Because even you are far away from AI, from machine learning, from ChatGPT, you definitely heard a lot about this. I think this is the first time ever that almost that you can find a lot of news in Forbes, in IIN, on DO, on other services, and almost all of technology news related somehow to artificial intelligence. Of course, sometimes you can find some other topics like, I don't know, blockchain or cryptocurrency or metaverse or some Apple presentations. But from my subjective view, 80% of all news connected somehow to artificial intelligence. And there are a few reasons why it's so. The first one, we have the advanced technology, the architecture that was developed by Google, which is called Transformer. And when we are talking about ChatGPT or GPT, so T is the Transformer. So there's the architecture that used for all this generative AI. And it was presented at 2017 by Google, as I said. And this technology is quite advanced. So every generative AI technology in 2023, with high probability, will be built on Transformer architecture. The second one is the leadership. OpenAI organization, which was not the leader actually in this area, in the area of generative AI, but with the help of Microsoft, it becomes it get the leadership in this area. And when you are talking about generative AI, the first company the first organization that you mentioned will be OpenAI. The third one is the compute that was provided by Microsoft after the deal. And of course, if we would like to train these large language models, we need a huge number of computer resource. So I don't have the actual numbers, but unofficial numbers, you need something like from $4 to $12 million to make one training of the model. So it's a huge number of computer power that needs. And Microsoft provides the Azure AI platform for such type of computation. And of course, the final component is the ChatGPT. So this specific model or even tool that was presented in 2022 made the viral effect in the world. So ChatGPT became the fastest growing technology product in history, actually. So 1 million active users they got for 4 days, and 100 million users they've got just in 2 months. So that's a huge number of users. And of course, even the developers of ChatGPT, they were so surprised to see such a big viral effect. They had to change the plans, and GPT-4 they released a little bit later just because of the ChatGPT popularity. So what was the key event in that? It was the deal between Microsoft and OpenAI in 2019, when Microsoft invested $1 billion in OpenAI. After that, OpenAI exclusively licensed all models to Microsoft in 2020. Then you maybe heard about GitHub Copilot that was launched in 2021. And finally, in 2022, we have a ChatGPT announced. If you will see that 2023, you will see such a lot of announcement. So Microsoft integrated OpenAI to almost all products and services they have. And if you will read the news about competitors, you also will see such a lot of announcement connected with generative AI and AI in general. Now we will go a little bit deeper. So before we will start talking about ChatGPT, let's talk, because you are technical audience. So I will not talk about the ChatGPT, the web version, because this is mostly suitable for the non-technical people. So now we will talk about what we have on behind. So we have multiple models from OpenAI. We have three families of base models. It's a GPT-3, GPT-3.5, and GPT-4. Then we have DALL-E, which is the model that can generate and edit images. So we have a Stable Diffusion, we have Midjourney, and we have a DALL-E as a three major providers of image generation. And Microsoft uses DALL-E for that, but this is out of topic right now. And also this another model is Whisper, which can convert audio into text. This is the open source model, and I think this is one of three open source models that provided by OpenAI, and this is something when Elon Musk, that was the founder or one of the co-founders of OpenAI, he said, okay, we are trying to do something open. Of course, we don't believe them. We don't believe him. But OpenAI was a non-profit organization, and in general, they should open source their models. But right now, we have just a Whisper and two other models, which are not the most powerful models from OpenAI. Also, we have embeddings and moderation. So these families will look a little bit later. So when the generative AI technologies arrived, we have the change of how we as a technical people or non-technical people interact with the artificial intelligence. So before that, if you're talking about machine learning model, or it could be a container or API or web service or some binary file which we need to read from Python code or something like this. Or it could be on an AX format. So, but still it was a very technical stuff. And if company would like to make some machine learning model, they require to have some kind of data specialists, data scientists, data engineers, ML ops, ML engineers. So it still was a very technical stuff. And when generative AI technologies arrived, it changed the approach how we work with the artificial intelligence, because right now we don't need to do very complicated requests or use some API or something. Sorry, we still can use API for that, but the request that we do for the instructions that we use for large language models is just the natural text. So you can use just a regular question. So please, what is the capital of Ukraine? So we can ask question and get the answer just using a regular text. But in general, of course, if you would like to be a prompt engineer and experience it in interacting with AI models, you should be able to interact with these models in more complicated way. So this prompt, which is the request, it could contain a different parts, like a context, like a persona, examples, restrictions, rules, and format. Persona. You could start from the explaining model who you are, or which persona should be ChatGPT, for example. You could say, okay, I'm the marketer, or I'm the CEO of the IT company, or something like this. So you need to introduce yourself. Then you need to get some context. So it could be information about your product, maybe some piece of information about some facts or some other description. So the language model should understand the context. Then you can provide some examples of what you are looking. You can say, okay, please generate the answer in that way, or please don't do this, or please do this. So some restrictions and rules. And also you can say, please generate me the result in JSON or CSV, or just unsorted list or table or some other format. Of course, you can use all this structure, but of course you can do some simpler prompts if your task is not complicated. But in general, as the good prompt will have a big number of contextual data, and in that case you will have better results. Prompt can be not longer than the limit, and each model has its own limit. It's calculated as a tokens. Token is something like piece of word or the whole word if it's not very long. It also could contain some punctuations, spaces, and it's hard to calculate in mind, but there are some tools that could calculate the tokens. And formally, all these generative AI technologies is just the technology of predicting the next token. Now let's talk about differences of how models work. We have two types of models. The first one is a completion models. What does it mean? It means that you just say the question or some piece of textual information, and you receive some answer in back. This is the example when we are using the OpenAI API. You just say, okay, this is the model text DaVinci 003, write a tagline for an ice cream shop. And completion will add text to your prompt. So it will continue your text. Sometimes it's just the statement, just do this. Sometimes it could be just a piece of text, but without ending, and model will complete this text. That's why it's called completions. The next mode is a chat completions. And this is the difference between base model and ChatGPT, for example, because in case of chat completions, you need to say some dialogue, because ChatGPT is modified to support dialogues. And in this case, we need to say, this is the, for example, user, this is the assistant, this is the person one, this is the person two, and this is the dialogue they have. Please generate the next answer, for example, for the assistant or for the user. So this is these two approaches that are supported by OpenAI models. Now let's move deeply into the different families. The first one is a GPT-3 models. Formally, they are outdated, but why we are still talking about this? Because I want to show you the evolution of models. It's the first reason. And the second reason, because if you would like to fine-tune your models, the only models that are supported for fine-tuning are GPT-3 models. So GPT-3, that's the base model, and they were trained as unsupervised learning. It means that we don't, so the base model can solve different tasks. We just say, okay, this is the big number of texts. Please read this text, understand how to make this text. So we don't say this model should be used only for document summarization or only for translation. So it's a wide usage model. And here we have Ada, Babbage, Curie, and Da Vinci. Da Vinci is the most powerful and the most expensive. All other models, Curie, Babbage, Ada, can be used for simple natural language processing tasks. But honestly saying, when we have already latest versions of GPT models, I would say they are outdated, and I think you should not use it right now. Da Vinci is rather powerful model, and if you would like to fine-tune your models, you still can use it. But it will be also more or less expensive, because you need to pay for hosting this model, for training this model, and for using this model. So the usage of these fine-tuning models will be more expensive than the base one. But if your business scenario requires to fine-tune the model, you still can use it. What does mean the fine-tuning? It means that you have a base model, but if you will ask something, it will produce some result. And in most of the cases, when you are using it for the regular question answering, it's okay. But for business scenarios, you need to modify answers, or you need some specific format of answers. And or you need to use your own data, or you need to use your own context. So in this case, you need to retrain model, but it will be very expensive to retrain all the models. So you just fine-tune this base model. This fine-tuning is more or less the same as a data scientist train their regular machine learning models, because we need something like a prompt text, and completion, the ideal answer. So when we provide all this information, we can train custom model, which will be fine-tuned model, and it will be more specific for your business case than the base one. It's a lot of, so you can use it as a regular framework. So if you would like to fine-tune your model, you still can use the, I would say, classic machine learning algorithms. For this case, you still need the data set that was created specially for you. And the problem is that if you use Ada, Curie, Babbage, the result will be not so good. Da Vinci might be an option, but as I said, it will be more complicated. Have you encountered the handling of large file in ChatGPT? If so, what cases can you tell us about? That's a very good question, but it's too early to answer that. So as I said, we have all models have a limit, and this limit is approximately from 2,000 tokens to 32 in GPT-4, but still it will not cover the big files. So it means that you could not use files as a prompt. So you need to break down your files, your text, and and we can use a different approaches how to do that. Okay, the next family of models are codex models. They are deprecated, but this model is based on GPT-3, and the general approach is to generate code. So this model was suitable for generating programming code. Here we have two models, Code Da Vinci 002 and Code Cushman 001. As you can see, Code Da Vinci is 8,000 tokens long, and Cushman is up to 2,000 tokens. And this model was used to create the first version of GitHub Copilot. Formally, so it was an extension to, it is the extensions to Visual Studio Code, and formally it's just the implementation of Codex API or something like this. But Microsoft was the first company that did it. I mean, the using of OpenAI model in that case, and that was the first product that utilized OpenAI API, but it was not for the wide audience, but just for developers. Now you can look at GitHub Copilot X. It was announced recently, and it's very powerful. It's built on top of newest version of GPT, not the Codex, and it contains the GitHub Copilot, where you can interact. You can ask some questions. This chat has access to your current programming code, so you can debug it. So you can ask about what's the reason of this exception, so you can generate some code, etc., etc. If you remember, there was a joke that we need to integrate Stack Overflow into Visual Studio. So it's more or less the same, because now we have all that possibilities inside the Visual Studio. I would say that you need to learn how to use Copilot properly, because it's not something that you add and that's it. So you need to understand how to ask questions, how to interact with your code, how to generate code, how to ensure that this code is okay, etc., etc. But the demos that I saw looks very, very interesting. The next family of models are GPT 3.5. And here you can see that Ada, Curie, and Babbage are missing here, but we can see Code Da Vinci, Text Da Vinci, Code Da Vinci, yeah, the book, Code Da Vinci, Text Da Vinci, and also we have a GPT 3.5 Turbo. So Code Da Vinci, it is the Codex. Text Da Vinci is the new version, 002 and 003 is the new version of Da Vinci. And here you can see the new model, which is GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is a chat GPT. So at that moment, so all the previous models were completions, and GPT 3.5 became the chat completions. So right now, GPT 3.5 Turbo is the cheapest and the fastest model. So for a lot of cases, you still can use GPT 3.5 Turbo, despite the fact that we have a new set of models, which are GPT-4 that were presented in 2023. So here, let's see the difference. So here we can see GPT 3.5 Turbo and Da Vinci. As I said, Code Da Vinci was deprecated. So here we have Da Vinci 003 and GPT 3.5 Turbo. But in GPT-4, we don't have these names. We just have GPT-4. And we have some modification of this model, GPT-4 32K. The only reason is that it could get bigger prompts. So the limit of GPT-4 is 8,000 tokens and GPT-4 32K, 32K respectively. But in general, we don't have DaVinci, Curie, ChatGPT, GPT-3.5 Turbo. We have one model. What does it mean? It means that we have all this model evolution. So the general idea was to have some specific models for the different types of problems. But in GPT-4, they decreased the number of models and just introduced one model for everything. So GPT-4 can make completions and can make the chat completions. So there is no difference in GPT-4. And the second interesting tag that GPT-4 can be used for programming, for text generation, and for chat completions. So this is the universal model. Okay, we have one more question. What do you think the possibility of training your model using the communication interface, a language model on their own data, has a prospect or more promising use of common models? I would say that this is the most requested feature because everybody has own data. And the base model will produce the general answers, which are good when you are just exploring the information, but it's not good when you are building some custom software and you need answers in very specific format. So this ChatGPT on your data is a very big trend, and a lot of tools fix this problem with limit of tokens, etc. Regarding training your model, formally you will not retrain your model because, as I said, you can retrain your model with a fine-tuning, which is not an option right now because you can see here that there is no possibility to fine-tune GPT-4 model. Maybe that day that OpenAI will allow to fine-tune GPT-4 models, I will say, okay, now we have a very flexible options to retrain model. But right now, what we can do is just make a prompt engineering or break down our data into smaller piece of information and then adopt it to our business needs. But that's something that this experience is needed because you don't know exactly, because this is the new approaches. Nobody has a lot of experience here. And you just need to understand the root of the data for specific case, and then understand what the best approach will be needed and what model should be used. What's the difference between fine-tuning and reinforcement learning? How one is better word than another? So you compare different terms which can't be compared because reinforcement learning is a technique of machine learning and fine-tuning is the process of training the model. Let me be more specific. So if we are talking about approaches, how we can train our model, we can use unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Okay, we have the fourth is hybrid learning when we can use hybrid approach. And all these methods explain how you will train your model. But fine-tuning means that you have already a big one, but you need to make a brush and select your own color of your car, because you will not change the car. You just can add your icons on a window. You can brush the color, select the color, and that's it. Okay, it could be a little bit better, but in general, it's the same. It's the same car that was given you by the vendor. So we can't say what is better or not, because this is different terms. I would say that ChatGPT is the fine-tuned version of GPT-3, and it was, some kind of reinforcement learning was used to train ChatGPT, but that will be one of my next slides. Okay, just look at this API endpoint. So you can see that all new models, which are GPT-4, GPT-3.5 Turbo, and GPT-4 32K, will have the chat completions in their endpoint, because they support chat and completions, or completions and chat completions. And if we will use the older models before 2022, Text DaVinci, Curie, Babbage, Ada, it will be just a completion. So these models are not suitable for analyzing dialogues. The next model is embedding, and the general idea is to present our text in a numerical format. In most of the cases, is the vector format. In some cases, you don't need to. In some cases, you don't need to present to store your text as a text, because text is the human representation, and but all the words, all these tokens, they have some meanings, and this meaning was trained on a big number of data set and stored as a vector. So that's why ChatGPT and all other models are multilingual, because they don't care about in what language you write prompt or in what language you're asking to give the completion. It just say, because all these texts are transformed to the numerical format and comparing the sense of the words, not just the words. Hope this is understandable. And embeddings can be used for text classification, for beta search, for finding, that's for the previous question. So how we, if we have a big number of texts, so we need to identify that pieces of information from that PDF or maybe Word document. We need to identify the correct piece of information from where the answer is located. So embeddings are used for this type of tasks. And finally, we have a moderation model, because blah, 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 AI should be responsible. We need to check if our questions are good, if our answers are good, blah, blah, blah. For that reason, we have these moderation models, and they are responsible for checking if text contains hate, self-harm, sexual violence, or some other type of non-responsible things. And you can check your own requests and also the generated answers, and that also will be a part of Azure platform, because you can also check, you can create your own content filters, etc., etc. Okay, now also I will answer the question regarding the reinforcement learning. So ChatGPT is fine-tuned model based on GPT 3.5. What does it mean? There were some people from Kenya for $2 per hour and they have a choice between different answers. So they have a question and different answers. Some answers were provided by humans, some answers were generated by ChatGPT, and they need to select the best answer. So it was the human work, handmade work, and a lot of Kenya guys, they spent some time to train the model. And that's why ChatGPT is supervised learning model. And for this learning, reinforcement learning from human feedback was used. So this is the approach. So if you are interested in how ChatGPT was trained, so you can look for reinforcement learning from human feedback reference. And it also was trained purely on Azure AI infrastructure. If you would like to start using ChatGPT, you can register on chat.openai.com, and you will be able to get access to the ChatGPT based on GPT 3.5. So this previous version, but the most stable and the most stable, the cheapest one and the quickest one. But if you would like to have better performance, faster response speed, and more especially priority access to new features, you should subscribe to ChatGPT Plus plan. It will be $20 per month, and you will get access to the latest models. The first one, you will get access to the plugins. So the one issue with ChatGPT is that it does not have access to the internet. So if you would like to ask something about current actions or some what's the exchange rate for USD, you will not get this data because it doesn't have access to the internet. Also, if you would like to ask to calculate something, ChatGPT is not the best tool to calculate something. But for example, Wolfram Alpha is a good one because it has a very huge possibilities for math engine, not just math engine, fact engine, math engine, etc. So the general idea is to connect ChatGPT with the external sources, and this approach is called plugins. How it works? You can select the plugins. You need to activate the plugins in your account, and then, for example, if you activate the Wolfram Alpha plugin, you can say, please do something with the Wolfram Alpha, or even you will not say with Wolfram Alpha if the task that Wolfram Alpha is responsible for you will have a match. So ChatGPT automatically will transfer your request to the Wolfram Alpha, get the result, and use ChatGPT to form a very good answer. So that's the idea of plugins. And Microsoft said that if you will build a ChatGPT plugin, it will work across all Microsoft ecosystems. So it will be supported in Microsoft 365 Copilot, Power Automate Copilot. So Microsoft has 10 plus Copilots already in a row. So all these plugins built for ChatGPT will work across the Microsoft ecosystem, which is a very good news because first of all, we will have more work. The second one, it will open a new market like Apple Store market or Apple Store or Google Store. The next model that will be enabled in ChatGPT Plus subscription is ChatGPT browsing. So the problem was the same problem that ChatGPT doesn't have access to the internet. plugins can have this connectivity with some specific task, but sometimes we just need to search something and generate the response in a simpler way. So for that purpose, we can use a ChatGPT browsing. And on the latest Build conferences, Microsoft announced that Bing will be used for such experience. So obvious. But now when you ask something and select the web browsing model, it can be activated in your beta features in settings. So it will go to the Bing, will search, will go through all the found references and create something like an abstract or summary through this topic. So it's very powerful. It works vice versa. So ChatGPT was also integrated into Bing, and you can select the chat mode in Bing, so you can ask your question in a natural language, and then you will get some summary with the references to the specific links. So it works in bidirectional way, and ChatGPT now integrated in so different Microsoft products. I'm waiting for Microsoft 365 Copilot in Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Teams, because it will have a very cool capabilities, and it will change how we work actually. Okay, this is the part that is needed for understanding what can be used and how we can use the Azure OpenAI service. So we have OpenAI API, and we can use them directly. But the biggest problem is that if you type something to ChatGPT or through the OpenAI API, OpenAI can use your data somehow to improve the model, etc. That means that for corporates, that approach is not suitable. But they could use Azure OpenAI. So as Microsoft exclusively licensed all these OpenAI models, they integrated all these models into the Azure. Technically, it's the same models. So ChatGPT in OpenAI and ChatGPT in Azure are the same. So it's the same model. But the difference is an interface, it's role-based access control, which is basic role management in Azure, and it's more big integration with the Microsoft services. So if you're working in Microsoft world, you have a perfect match because you don't need to use some external tool. Azure OpenAI becomes one more Azure service. And of course, you will see all these generative AI models everywhere across all the Microsoft 365 and Azure ecosystem. It works very similar. So Azure OpenAI will provide you some kind of playgrounds, ability to test your models. You will have more options to query models, so you have more parameters which are missing in a web version of ChatGPT. But at the end, you just have an endpoint which is very similar to OpenAI API. It will just have a little bit different URL, but in most of the cases, it will be very similar experience. As for now, Microsoft announced Azure OpenAI as a global availability service, but if you would like to use it, you need to get access. So you just need to apply, explain your case, and Microsoft will approve or not. Why they do it in that way? Because first of all, they are aware of responsible use of that technology. And the second one, the list of the number of people that would like to get access is very huge, and they don't have such a lot of computer power actually to manage all these requests. And even now they have a very shortage of GPUs, a very big shortage of computer power because the demand is so huge. Azure OpenAI, they don't have 100% compatibility with OpenAI. So it means, for example, that DALL-E is not available or available by request. So if you would like to get all the capabilities, you need to go into 3 different QEs. You need to get access to the Azure OpenAI itself, to the GPT-4 model, then to DALL-E, then to DaVinci fine-tune it. So it's 4 different teams that are responsible for all this kind of stuff. But when you have, I have something like 50% of access of that. Maybe I'm not very needed of DaVinci model for fine-tuning. And I don't need DALL-E right now to access via API. So, but GPT-4 models I have already access and can compare how they're working. Yeah, so also, let me show maybe the general screen. So you have this Azure AI Studio. The name is changed very often. It was Azure OpenAI Studio. Now it's Azure AI Studio. So it changed. I have a very strong opinion that Azure AI Studio will be merged into the Azure Machine Learning Studio, because I saw the presentation at Build, and most likely they will unite these 2 services. But right now it's 2 different studios. Okay, right now I would like to switch to the live demo. So we will go through the service. So just give me 1 minute. Okay, we have a question. So just an interface with a layer of Azure infrastructure on top of regular models? Yes. Are the models tuned during the usage? Someone leaks private corporation data for the Azure service, another user, let's say, using the web version could get the data. No. So if you're using a regular OpenAI service, the prompts, responses can be used for improving the service. So nobody says that everything will be used, but potentially that access, so some people can have access to something that you chat with the ChatGPT. In case of using Azure OpenAI, Microsoft stated that you have your own instance of this playground, something like isolated storage, etc. So nothing will be shared with Microsoft or OpenAI or third-party companies. Regarding some leaks, so if you will query, or you will make some prompts, and I will make some prompts, I will not, so the answers, the completions from the model will not connect it to what you are doing, because this is the pre-trained model, and it will not improved. So ChatGPT is not learned from your data because it's already pre-trained model and it's unchangeable. But the next version of ChatGPT can use data that users generate or enter it during this couple of months. Microsoft stated they will not use corporate data for retraining or for improving the service. The reason is very simple, because they don't work on the models itself, because the OpenAI is responsible for models building. They just integrated them into their ecosystem. And as you can see right now, Microsoft provides the unified interface, like for cognitive services, for Azure machine learning, where you can work as a regular Azure service. Okay, let's look at the interface. So the first one is models. So here you can find two tabs. The first one is base models. The second one is a custom models. So base models means that you can enable some base model, which can be other, so all the models, GPT-3, GPT-3.5, GPT-4, and if you will enable it the DALE, you also will see the DALE. Also, I see here some models, which is text embeddings other, text similarity other, so some additional models which are not listed even on OpenAI website. But in general, you can see GPT 3.5 Turbo, GPT-4, GPT-4 35, 32K, and you can make one deployment per instance. And if you would like to fine-tune your models, so here you can upload your own data, is the JSON-L format. So you can create new data set, and then you can fine-tune your model, and it will be created and will be listed here, like a query. So this one. So you have a choice to use a base model or your custom model. When you create your model, you need to deploy it. So when you deploy your model, you have a deployment name. So that's the difference between OpenAI and Azure OpenAI, because when you use the API, you need to add a model name. And if you're using in Azure OpenAI, you need to add deployment name, which actually can be any name. So here you say the deployment name, then you have a model name, you have a model version, you have some limitations, etc., etc. But it's very straightforward. I found also this quotas tab, so you can say that okay, you can have some number of tokens per minute in thousands. So maybe you have a high load service, so you need more and more quotas, so you can request a new quota. But that's the technical stuff, which is not so interested right now. Also, we have a content filters. Not a lot of understanding what I can do with that, but in demos from build, there will be also the Azure content AI, something like, or responsible AI studio. So you can use this custom filter for managing your content. So once you deploy these models, you can start using and playing with a playground. As you can see, we have a chat and completions, like we talk on our presentation. Here is a very similar playground that you can find in OpenAI. You just select the deployment. You can use some examples, or you just can type your own. And this is what is meant. When there is some text, then I say summary, and model will complete this text. That's why it's called completions. Here you can see a couple of parameters. The most important one is, okay, we have two most important. The first one is max length tokens. For example, 350, it's a small response. I can increase the number, but this limit that you can see in documentation, it's the total limit for prompt and the answer. So if we are talking about that the limit is 2000 tokens, it means that prompt and answer should fit this limit. That's why if you will do more, you will get the error that it's exceed your limit. And the second parameter, which is very important, is the temperature. So temperature, if you enter the same prompt, you will get a slightly different results. It's by design. But if you would like to make it very small variance, you need to say the temperature is 0. If you would like to get big variance, you need to set this is a 2. Here, okay, this is the one in case of Azure. So you can select this temperature. Also, you have some kind of what's the stop criteria, what's the how many responses, how many examples of completions you would like to generate, and some other parameters that might be used. But in general, it's quite simple and the same as OpenAI. As you can see that the text that generated is just the complete my prompt. Okay. And if I will go to the chat, just a second. If I will go to the chat, here we have more interesting stuff, because ChatGPT allows to do more things and it requires more parameters. The first one is a system message. So system message is just the persona or scenario that ChatGPT should support. So you explain ChatGPT who you are and what the context of this dialogue. So you are an assistant that helps people find information. You can add some description of your company, or I don't know. So any context that could be useful for this dialogue. And then you can say some user message. Okay, make a SWOT. Also here I select the deployment ChatGPT. Also I select how many past messages included, and how many tokens were generated. Okay, so it generates some SWOT analysis of Microsoft Teams. Make it as a table. Yeah, so ChatGPT allows you to make it in different formats, as I said. So here, so you can slightly interact with the model. So you can continue working with the model with your conversation. Also, if you include past messages, your number of tokens increasing and you pay more. So that's why if you will say make 20, so you will pay more. But that's it. I would say here I can select GPT-4 32K or GPT-4, so it will be more expensive, but you can test different scenarios. You can also add examples. It will be also included as a system message. For example, if you need some specific form of answer, you can provide some additional examples. So you can see a slightly difference between chat and completions. But as I said, if you're using GPT-4, it's more or less the same, and you don't have this completions and chat completions. So it will support both models. Okay, that's it. It's very simple, I would say, right now. Once we have this answer, I can say view code. So then I can select, for example, C#. So I can see how to make these queries in different languages, in JSON, in Python. So very simple. This is my endpoint. This is my key. So very simple. You can integrate now ChatGPT into your application. Okay, and a few words. What is next? So you can use a semantic kernel. This is the SDK. So this is the library that allows you to work with large language models. You might heard about LongChain, which is in Python. So it also has similar possibilities, and Microsoft also started support LongChain integrations, etc. And it allows to work with OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. If you would like to learn more about how to make a ChatGPT prompts and Midjourney prompts, I created books which called ChatGPT Prompt Book and Midjourney Prompt Book. So here is the link. So you will have the presentation. So you will be able to access these books for a small donate to Donor.ua. And thank you so much for your attention. I will be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you, Alexander. Thanks a lot. It was a very interesting session. From your experience, I can actually start my camera. From your experience, what is the correlation between amount of users and the amount of money that you pay for service usage, and how we may decrease it? Like how not to spend all the family or company budget on Microsoft AI services?
Mm-hmm. First of all, you need to clearly understand what model you should use, because the difference between GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT-4 in 10 times. So in most of the cases, both models produces the good results, good enough results. It means that you should not use GPT-4 by default. You should use GPT 3.5 Turbo by default. And if you see that that model for your specific case is not suitable, then you need to switch to GPT-4. And of course, you need to use the GPT-4 32K only for that situations when you need to create very long prompts or very long completions. But it will be super expensive. It will be 12 cents per 100 tokens, 1,000 tokens. It means that one prompt on 32 with the maximum limit will cost you $2 or something like this. So it's quite expensive. But of course, if you generate the technical description and it costs $2, that's a very good investment. But if you ask in the capital, what is the capital of Ukraine, and it costs $2, it's too expensive. So that's the first thing. The next one, you need to understand. So all your prompts should be optimized. Prompts could be optimized because ChatGPT understands the context. You don't need to write. So it's not. You should not write your prompts as a book or a science paper. You just need to list all the information, all the facts, without any, I don't know. So just point the details, not, how to say correctly, not the full story. And ChatGPT will understand the context. Also, you can use, instead of explaining all the data, you can use the CSV format or JSON format or something like this as a part of your prompt. That means that you can make shorter prompts and it will cost you less money. But to be honest, if you will use proper model, your prompts will be optimized. The value that you will get for this money is much bigger than money that you pay to Microsoft or OpenAI. Of course, if you are a high loaded service and you have 1 million messages per day, of course you will spend a lot of money. But to be honest, such services they still spend a lot of money for infrastructure. So nothing. So it's not something that slightly change it. But of course, it will. So the price will be decreased because everybody understood that it's too expensive. And also some open source models will arrive, and Google maybe provides some. So it will be. So we will have a situation where the prices will decrease, hopefully, or we will use some kind of open source models.
Thank you. So just to summarize, first of all, we rather use older models and shorter prompts, correct? Thank you. A similar question related to this one, there are a lot of chatbots nowadays, they're absolutely free. You may ask questions and so on. Why this happening? How people monetize this, or rather, is there any way to use such services for free? Or because I don't understand, it looks like rather expensive. How may I use such services without paying money?
There are two reasons. The first one, everybody start building something on top of OpenAI API, and they need traction. That's why it's just the investment. And honestly saying, so Microsoft and OpenAI stated that they spend so much money on hosting these models. So even all these paid people, paid users, don't cover the expenses. So this is the investment. Another type of services, they are not free actually, because you can chat with your you can chat with your PDF. First 10 questions, and then you need to pay $10 for the next 20 questions. So they start monetizing immediately. And if you see something like free, it means that it's promo, it's investment, or it will be not free in very nearest future.
Thank you. If I have a pet project, or if I'm a student and I have very limited budget or no budget at all, Are there any, I don't know, demo versions from Microsoft or like some limited usage services or free tiers or anything that I may use like to just get some basic understanding or like to play a bit? Oh.
In this case, you could use the free version of ChatGPT. You have some small limit on OpenAI API per month. I don't remember. It might be $8 or $18 per month, something like this. So you can play a little bit with the OpenAI API, not the Azure OpenAI, because you need to have subscription, you have to get access, etc. But you can use Microsoft Edge browser, which enables you the Bing extension. You have some kind of ChatGPT integrated into this extension. So you can, it will be not useful for, it will not produce you huge responses, but if you would like to generate some email or essay or something like this, you can use it. Also, you can use, because all services have already activated generative AI capabilities. For example, Notion, they also have Google in paid version, but in paid version they have activated generative AI. So if you would like to test, you can. The simplest option is to use Microsoft Edge plus Bing extension, Notion, Bing chat for querying some answers, for making some search requests, and free version of ChatGPT.
Thanks. That's really important. Everyone, if you have any questions, you may type or join the conversation, join the discussion. Meanwhile, I'll use my opportunity to talk with Alexander. Alexander, if I'm bold enough to try it offline, like if I don't want to go cloud, if I want to test it on-prem, or if I want to run it on my laptop, I know that it's possible. And for example, like DALL-E, perhaps I'm wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but you may run it locally for sure. And like old versions of GPT, as I may also know that. Am I correct? And what kind of resources do I need? Like perhaps a powerful video card or something like that.
Unfortunately, you can't run these models on your laptop, and you never had this opportunity because they are they are large. That's a large language models. It means that, as previously, I don't have the exact numbers, but I have some rumors. I read some rumors that the hosting of ChatGPT is something like $700,000 per day. So it's huge amount of money, and you need to. So and the model itself, I don't know, it's thousands of gigabytes. Just the let's say how parameters of the neural network. So it's a huge model. So you can't run it. Of course, some kind of open source models, they will be not so powerful as ChatGPT, but they somehow will allow you to run it. Maybe not on your laptop. I think it's impossible right now, but at least on some powerful server or self-hosted solution. I think we will have some kind of infrastructure offers to host your own ChatGPT on your own server or something like this. Of course, it will be cost money, huge amount of money, but for example, $2 million per year, for example. If you are company, big enough company, you can afford this. I don't have any specific plans on that.
We have some
Nikita
questions.
said, yes, at least you have a supercomputer at home. Yes, if you have one, I think you could have one. So in this case, you will be able to do that. Will quantum computing eliminate the issues of limited computation resources? I'm not an expert in quantum computing. What I saw from my colleagues from Microsoft and MVPs, they showcase some kind of quantum computing demos, but I don't have any rumors or data when it could be possible and if it will replace, because if you run quantum computing operations on your current laptop, I assume it's not real quantum computing. I just think it's the simulation of quantum computing. So obvious answer, it will not replace. But when we will have the quantum computing laptops or computers, might be. But as I said, it just I'm not experienced in this topic, so maybe I said something very wrong. So excuse me for that.
Alexander, talking about processor modules, like I know that mobile phone CPUs and modern GPUs, they have some internal modules optimized for artificial intelligence. What exactly is that? What they are improving? Like if you know that, of course.
So if you run some simple algorithms, it doesn't matter on what architecture you run this algorithm, because it's just some mathematical calculations. But if we are talking about neural networks or embeddings or this language, so in this case, we operate with vectors, and we need to do a lot of mathematical operations with vectors. And GPU as an architecture that is used for games, because they need to calculate all these renders, all these backgrounds, all these things. So all games are run on a GPU processor. And that's why it's more useful for artificial intelligence. But you are totally right that now one of the direction is to create a chip or the architecture that will be suitable for AI processing. It will be specifically for AI processing, just for I don't know, so we will have, for example, a phone, or not a phone, but some device that will be suitable for calculation. It calls AI on edge, when AI is not running on a cloud, but it's run on a device. But in this case, it should be very specifically created for this type of task. So we might have processors that will be optimized for AI.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions, remarks, or comments? We do.
Yes, we have. The question more about the price of the models from cloud providers, not for the home usage. If it take 700,000 with silicon chips, but might take less as quantum computing is supreme if compared with the current chips. I don't know how to answer your question, honestly saying. So I just saying that Microsoft and OpenAI, they are working on decreasing the price of all these models in different ways, in architectural way, in infrastructure way, and of course in neural network optimization way. Because if you will see the ChatGPT 3-4 months ago, and now you will see that speed was increased in 5-10 times, and without changing the price for that. So they are working on that. If you are using ChatGPT on GPT-4, there is something like a if you make a request to GPT-4 model, you just take the bottle of water and just and waste this water, because it's very expensive right now. And of course, if we will have, or Microsoft will have, this quantum computing supercomputers, of course it will make all these kind of calculations and all this kind of AI systems cheaper than right now. Because if we will have something that, because now the AI revolution started and AI competition started between different companies, and each business, each individual would like to try some kind of ChatGPT or will use software that will utilize or leverage ChatGPT and other generative AI technologies, and it will produce a big increase of usage computer power. And of course, it's just the beginning. So in 20 years, we could say that AI will consume such a lot of electricity. So of course, all these companies, they are trying to be a few steps behind current situation, and they are thinking about how to optimize all these technologies.
Thank you. We'll probably see more AI on edge, as I understand, with more advanced device and more optimizations in terms of hardware. Yeah.
Yes, but it will be the narrow AI. So it will be the device that will do just one action, but it will do it fast, in simple way, and on this device. And of course, we will see such a lot of different devices that will be suitable for the specific task.
I think I know where I should invest my money.
Sorry,
okay.
Could you repeat?
I said I know where I should invest my money. It seems so. Quite an interesting area.
Yeah. What do you think about AI takeover on human work, software engineers' work in general? Despite the fact that I showed you the GitHub Copilot, I think that developers will lose. We will lose our work maybe at the end, because when a new technology arrived, everybody would like to replace old style apps, old style websites. They would like to build a new styled application. So of course, the way how we work, I mean the developers or IT sector, how we work, of course it also will change. Something like administrators were transformed into DevOps, something like this. The same, some data engineers or ML engineers will be transformed into applied AI engineers or prompt engineers. So we will see some kind of transformation of the industry. Of course, technology and AI will replace humans, and it's already started, because, for example, if I have somebody to write a content and I'm not satisfied of the results or the speed of the quality of the text they produce, I just fire them and I will not take another person. I just use the ChatGPT for $20 per month, and it will produce me all the content I need. But if you are smart enough and you will be able to learn all these tools and will be able to slightly integrate these tools in your work to increase productivity, you definitely will not lose this work. We have 5G for artificial general intelligence. No need to have a supercomputer in your pocket. What you will need is to have the internet connection to the cloud. It makes sense. But we need to understand that we still operate the numbers, the current numbers where we live. I mean, the number of data, signals, processing, tasks, problems will increase in geometrical, I don't know, progression. So 5G is also not a cheap technology. So it's also a very expensive technology. So of course we will have a 5G phones and we can send a big amount of data into the internet, but the requirements to the data processing, to the AI, and to the business solving will be also increased. So it's the question how all this technology will evolve in parallel all together, or we will see some kind of gap between these technologies. And we still have issues that we can't use. A lot of organizations and governments, they can't use cloud for their tasks. And they need some kind of local developed or local hosted technology. So it's very, we are on the beginning on very interesting era of artificial intelligence. I know that sometimes you can say, oh, everybody, all fans of blockchain said that, or all fans of metaverse said that, but it's not just my love of AI or not. It's just the, I would say, reality, because you just can see the number of services, updates, and announcements each day. And you can make a conclusion that it is not just a hype. Of course, this is a hype too. But this hype is not, AI is not something that you can use just in a small amount of cases, like NoSQL. Okay, you have 3% of cases for NoSQL, 97% for a regular SQL approach. Or blockchain, it has 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 cases where you can use it. No, AI can be used everywhere. And ChatGPT make this as a technology trigger, because now everybody wants ChatGPT, everyone. Does AI commit into global warming? That's quite interesting, because I see a lot of requests connecting with the ability to calculate the influence of companies and technologies into environment. So very soon we will have financial reporting and also the responsible AI reporting, and also some kind of global warning reporting. So everybody will show these numbers, and if you will influence a lot, you will lose money. So a lot of companies, they said that we should be carbon negative, or at least carbon neutral. And Microsoft said they should be carbon negative till 2015, something like this. So it's also one more huge direction that is caused by AI and all this kind of technologies. If a company doesn't want to share their data, even they say it won't be shared, what options they have or will have in future? They always have options not to use any technology, close the internet, and kill the computer. Or of course, if they would like to host their own model on their own infrastructure, I think we will have these options in future. But in general, some companies disallow disallow it using ChatGPT from corporate account. So that's the reality right now. Did I understand correctly that a free ChatGPT model for a pet project can be found somewhere on OpenAI.com website in order to interact with the free model via API? No, you can use ChatGPT without API for free. But if you would like to interact via API, it's another site. It's also OpenAI website, but it's another one. And you will have a small credit for that. So you will be able to play a little bit for I don't know, it will be enough for your pet project, but you definitely can play with OpenAI.
Nice. Thanks, Alexander.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk again. Thank you for all your questions, and have a nice evening.
Thanks a lot. If you want more, follow us on social media, Allstars IT. See you later and have a great evening. If you want to rewatch us, find us on YouTube. We will post the video pretty soon. Goodbye.